roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Okay, it is 4:46. Yeah, so it took me like about 3.5 hours to watch this hour and 50-minute movie. I had to do some things on the computer, and I felt the compulsion to tidy up the kitchen a little bit. Sometimes these real life tasks just they get in the way. There's no avoiding them sometimes. I'd feel too distracted if I just sat down and just watched movie after movie and did nothing else. I needed to get some things done work-wise, so yeah, it's a week off, but not a complete entire week off. Regardless, the film Christine. It was, I think, one of John Carpenter's best movies. This was awesome. Holy shit. Now, this is the new favorite of the marathon, I think. There's not a thing I didn't like about this. There really isn't. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I didn't know where it was going until it went where it went, and then once it settled into that, you have like a good hour and 10, 15 minutes to kind of follow that kind of through line. But the setup, I really wasn't sure. We followed two friends. I can't even remember their names. Oh my god. Arnold was the main character. I forget his best friend's name though. I guess it's because he kind of disappears for kind of half the movie almost. But we have these two best friends, and I love the relationship because the one guy is the kind of, semi-popular jock type in high school, and his best friend is Arnie, who is this stereotypical geek with glasses who, is just one of those kids who gets picked on and all that kind of thing and isn't very popular. And it was kind of heartwarming to see that they were best friends. I kind of almost found myself imagining like them growing up together, and kind of despite their completely diverging paths as, young individuals in high school, they still remained best friends, and I thought that was really nice. And he sticks up for him when he gets bullied and things like that. And one day, Arnie spots a car out in this kind of, this down this little dirt road to this small house, and there's this beat up car, this red car. I don't know the make of it or anything. I'm not a car person at all, but a beautiful looking car in its prime, and it's run down, it's dilapidated, it's just completely a wreck. But he wants it. He really, really wants it. And so they speak to the old guy who wants to sell it, who I kept thinking, that's Old Man Marley, isn't it? Or is it Old Man Marley or Old Man Murphy? Old Man Marley from Home Alone. I thought, is that Old Man Marley? And so I looked it up, and it is motherfucking Old Man Marley. And he said some things that I didn't want to hear coming out of the mouth of such a kind old sweet man that I remember from Home Alone. But he was a very memorable, if brief, character in the film who wanted to sell this car that he said was called Christine, and his brother used to own it before he died. So there's a history with this car, and we have a prologue actually which shows the car in the 50s getting built on the assembly line, and it stands out immediately, and someone gets killed by the car, apparently, it seems to us, the viewers of the film. The film picks up in 1978, I guess 2 decades later, and Arnie decides to buy the car. His parents are mad about it. They don't want him making these rash decisions, but he's bought the car. He's standing by it, but they won't let him park it outside the house. So he takes it to this this old warehouse where they work on cars and things. There's a scrapyard and everything. And the man who runs it is the old guy from Last Action Hero, one of my favorite movies. Robert Prosky, I believe, is the actor's name. And I just couldn't believe it was him because he just sounded so different. Like, he really did this great accent. Really, another really memorable, if brief, character in the film who doesn't take any shit and has one of those real wise-cracking kind of personalities, which was really fun. You can tell this comes from Stephen King. There's a lot of the humor, the sexual dialogue and things like that. I don't know how closely it follows the book in the sense of that, but it really felt like the kind of Stephen King book that he was writing, at least at that period, where it was about teenagers, and there's a realism to the way they talk. The main character, Arnold, his second name is Cunningham, and so although the bullies call him Cuntingham, that's just something that would happen, So is this? Yes, it is rated 18 for very strong language and strong sex references, which makes complete sense to me. What I wasn't expecting at all, there's a moment in the film where I literally put my hands on my head and went, holy shit, right? And that's when I wish I'd been recording my reactions, because there's this girl who comes in, this new girl, and everyone wants to go out with her, and Arnold only rolls up to the football game with her on his arm, kissing her. And I couldn't believe it. And we see this transformation from Arnie, where he becomes a completely different person when he has Christine. He spends a couple of months kind of putting the car back together and making it brand new and pristine. It's his pride and joy, and it becomes his everything. It becomes his love. It becomes his addiction, and it changes him as a person. And I loved it because I felt so strongly about the characters in the film. I felt so badly for his friend who was losing Arnie as a friend, as someone, as the person he used to know. He was being changed, and I really felt for the girlfriend who, you know, really kind of loved Arnie, but he was being twisted and manipulated by this car, which is a crazy thing in reality to think about. So how do you even deal with something like that? Because you can't really quantify it in any realistic sense, where it's like, well, the car is changing him. You know, it just doesn't really make much sense, but things start happening in the film which gives some of these characters a reason to believe that the car is actually changing him and is actually operating under a mind of its own, perhaps. And I really love the slow build of that. I think that it could turn into something really cartoony, a car with a mind of its own. I think Carpenter toes the line so perfectly with the way he portrays this in the film that it always feels, I don't want to say believable, but believable within the world that it's, you know, operating under. So I really felt bad for Arnie because he's like, you know, you feel sympathetic towards him at the beginning of the film. You know, he said that he wanted the car because he finally found something that was uglier than him. Only with this he could actually fix it. So you really sympathize with this guy, you know, and there are people out there who are, again, to very loosely and quickly describe them as geeks, who are unpopular and never really get the kind of the fairness that other people do who are perhaps better looking or whatever. You know, I always empathize with that kind of a character because it's a really rough spot to be in, I think, when you're growing up as a young person. And so instantly, you know, sympathize with the character, and then you see him gain this confidence. And, you know, he finds a talent in actually fixing up this car and everything. But it changes him. And he's got the most beautiful girl in school who loves him for his personality and for the things he's interested in and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, he can't appreciate her. And he can't keep her because he is pushing her away because of his love for his car. You know, and I just think it's such an interesting and unique story that is another brilliantly put together tale from Stephen King. And I really do love that combination, that 1-2 punch of a Stephen King story, not adapted by John Carpenter. I think someone else wrote the script for this one. The screenplay is by Bill Phillips, but brought to life on the big screen by John Carpenter. I think this is one of his best films. I think this is an underrated John Carpenter classic. I really do. He did the music for this film. Haven't talked about that much because there hasn't been much reason to. I loved his score for Assault on Precinct 13. He didn't do the music for Someone's Watching Me, which Adrienne Barbeau was actually lamenting in her interview, and she's like, I wish he did the music for the film. And I agree, you know. And then Elvis, obviously, that's mainly just all Elvis songs. So this, we get the full original John Carpenter score. From what I believe, I may have already said this, I think that he scored some of his films more out of necessity than anything else. But I think he's a brilliant musician. And I really love that kind of synthy, kind of electronic sound that he brings to his music. And I'm a big fan of his 2 recent albums that he put out called Lost Themes. So I love his music, and I think this is a really good score, but also interspersed with all of these great kind of 50s rock and roll songs, which kind of give you this hint as to, you know, Christine's backstory in a way. This is a car that was born in the 50s and as such only plays on its radio 50s music. And there are often, you know, musical beats where a song is played at an appropriate moment that kind of plays along with how the car is feeling at that moment in time, which I think was really clever and smart without being too on the nose. And it builds to a finale where I had no idea how it was going to wrap up. So there was tension there and excitement. There is a fucking incredible scene at a gas station when Christine just wrecks shit up, blows up this gas station, and the car is just completely on fire, and it drives away like a vision out of fucking hell. Like, it's just an amazing sequence where if it was done now, it would be CGI, which would probably be for the best as far as the safety of people involved is concerned. But to see it done for real in the 80s, holy shit, what a visual. and I just loved it from start to finish. Thought it was fantastic. Loved the vibe of it. Just loved it. Had that John Carpenter feel to it to me, which does go with the music, but goes with the kind of, I don't know, the characters. The performances are really good. Harry Dean Stanton turns up, and I wish there was more of him, because he's a detective who starts kind of cottoning on that some strange things are going on with the car, and then once a death happens, he gets involved. There's a brilliant scene between him and Arnie, which is so full with like this kind of underlying tension, and I just love Harry Dean Stanton. It just brings a big smile on my face to see him, and I loved that scene so much. I just wish he was in the movie more. That would have been great. So yeah, I think that all around fantastic film. I absolutely adored it, and I'm even more excited to kind of be flicking through the disc, which also delayed me a little bit in filming this part of the video. There is a feature-length audio commentary with John Carpenter and the lead actor Keith Gordon, who played Arnie, who's now a director, and also there is like a almost hour-long 3-part making-of documentary. There are 20 deleted scenes that almost total 30 minutes, in which I flicked through, and they looked like they were actually, if not high definition, but looked really good. They weren't kind of like those, sometimes on these DVDs or Blu-rays you get kind of the old DVD versions of the deleted scenes, which are like all boxed in a letterbox and you can barely see them. They're awful quality. Looked like there was some pretty good quality going on for the deleted scenes, so I look forward to diving into this. It has an isolated score option, which is really cool. But loved this film, absolutely loved it. So I will leave it there for Christine. I think I've pretty much covered everything, and I really loved the final beat of the film, which was kind of like a 1-2 kind of fake out, where you're like, oh, okay, and then the last shot is like, I thought that was just a brilliant touch to end it. And I looked on Letterboxd, and everyone I know is very on it, like 3 stars out of 5, 2.5 stars out of 5. Full marks kind of film to me. There's nothing I can say that I didn't like about it, and I will watch it again and again. So yeah, this is a new favorite for me. Loved Christine. Not as much as Arnie loves Christine, but I loved Christine all the same.